Kelly from Project Healing Waters Omaha, and tonight we have a very special guest, Tim Jacobs from Colorado. I met Tim at the Denver fly fishing show in January last year. I watched him tie amazing deer hair bass bugs, so I really kind of hung around his table a lot. So I asked him to present for us, and in April of last year, he gave a very informative presentation on deer hair stacking and packing. He's graciously offered to return to do a presentation on a few flies anyway, that will work great on most warm water species and also maybe for trout on cold water. Tim Jacobs is an angler, fly tyer, author, photographer. He's been a guide, a casting instructor. He teaches at youth trout camp in Michigan. Aside from publishing numerous articles, he wrote 2 books, tying, let me do this visual aid, tying and fishing deer hair flies. If you actually go to the Denver Fly Show, you'll be able to get, you got to see this. He has, let me put it in the camera right. He actually even did some artwork there for Letort Hopper, which he'll be doing tonight. But aside from, he also has another book called Tactics for Bass and Other Warm Water Species. And then in his spare time, he appears at numerous fly shows, and he's on the Whiting Farms Regal Vice and Nature Spirit Pro staff. Tim's a great teacher and presenter, and I'm sure you'll enjoy this. So with that said, I'll hand it over to Tim.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Am I on camera now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for inviting me. It was I had a lot of fun doing the last spring with you guys, and it's always a pleasure to share some fly tying with people. So yeah, so what I thought I'd do tonight is, like you said, in the spring I did the stacking deer hair, all the big stacking deer hair flies, and so I thought I would do some other techniques, with deer hair. Most of everything I'm going to do tonight is deer hair. If we have time at the end, I've got a little, I guess what you might think of as a little more modern hopper pattern. It's going to be a foam hopper pattern. I don't know if you've been to the Denver show and you've had the opportunity to watch Juan Ramirez tie. He's a really great Colorado fly tyer. And this pattern is, I guess it's kind of his. There's quite a few guys out there, quite a few foam patterns. They kind of all are in kind of the same ballpark in many ways. But the Letort Hopper, this is an older school pattern. It has some history. When I started fly fishing, in the late 70s, early 80s, I've always been a great reader. I've always loved to read. And so I was reading guys like Vince Marinero, Charlie Fox, and a lot of those anglers out of Pennsylvania. And Shank's book was one of the patterns where they had, he's the one who's credited with the Letort Hopper, although Ernie Schwiebert has a pattern he calls the Letort Hopper as well. It's just more or less this pattern with just a couple little differences in it. But what I like, first of all, I like kind of the history of the pattern. It catches fish. It doesn't have legs on it. When you start adding legs into flies, that's definitely, you're complicating the fly a little bit. And this one, you can kind of see the hair collar on it. The hair collar does a pretty good job of sort of imitating legs. And then underneath here, there's a turkey quill. There's a turkey quill wing, and I'm going to talk about the prep on this wing and kind of what it does as I start to tie it. But that wing will start to splay out too. And this pattern, kind of the more ratty it gets, in some ways, the better it fishes. And one last little thing with this pattern is you can tie it, a couple things. One, you can tie it all black, and it's a great little cricket pattern. And also, one of the things I do with this pattern is I'll always have a small ant, in my vest, and I'll be, on my patch or whatever, so I can get to it quickly. A lot of times, sometimes a fish will show to this pattern. He'll come and look at it, not take it. If you just stop right there, as you're fishing the edge, just switch over to an ant, cast an ant. Almost inevitably, the fish will turn and come and eat that ant. But this fly is the one that's located them. So anyway, yeah. So let's go ahead and let's tie it. And I don't know how you guys want to. You just want to jump in and ask questions or whatever. I don't know the format, Mike, but feel free anytime anybody wants to ask a question. All right, let me readjust my camera here and get a little closer view of my vise.
Yeah, we don't have any rules here, so if anybody has a question, feel free to chime in and ask it. If you don't want to, you can put it in the chat and I'll keep an eye on the chat and ask the question when there's a break in activity or whatever.
Okay. Yeah. So the first thing you want to do with this fly is you want to tie it on a light wire 2 extra long dry fly hook. Let me kind of get that so I get it focused. This is a TMC 5212 5212. The Daiichi 1280 is another one. It's a 2 extra long, but it's dry fly wire. Okay, and I think that's really important on this fly because it doesn't have all the foam and stuff in it that's going to like turn it into a cork. It's going to make it sit on top of, really float, where you can, a lot of times those patterns are tied on 2 extra long or 3 extra long nymph wire hooks, which is a little heavier wire hook. Where this one is, you definitely want to tie with this fly with the light wire hook. And it's going to sit nice and low in the water. I mean, it's just a really nice pattern. So it's good. And it's only 3 materials. It's a very simple pattern in a lot of ways. So let me start here. And what I'm using right now is it's a UTC Hopper yellow. You can use a bright yellow pattern. You use a bright yellow thread on this. You could use olive. Really, the thread isn't hardly going to show except for just at the head of the fly. But this is the UTC 140 Hopper yellow color. It's a little bit of a muted yellow color. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come up here just for my own proportions. I'm going to start the hook about a quarter to a third of the way back. Okay, and the reason I'm doing that is this little piece up here I want for my deer hair head. And so now I'm going to just wrap back to my tie-in point here on this hook, and the tie-in point is always right there where that bend starts on this hook. It's kind of in different places on different hooks. On this hook, it looks like it's right about at the point of the hook, and right about in there's your back tie-in point. So I've got a couple. Mike mentioned I'm a Nature Spirit Pro Team. I'm on Nature Spirit Pro Team, so I use a lot of their products. So the dubbing I'm using tonight is going to be the Fine Natural Dubbing and Hopper Yellow. But I tie some with this too. It's the Fine Natural Dubbing Rainbow Blend. And I don't know if you can see it, but you can probably see a little bit of sparkle in that. This has got some real fine sparkle in it. And this is a great dubbing too. This fly can be tied with tan dubbing, olive dubbing, I mean, any whatever your hopper colors, whatever your hoppers happen to be. If you take a look at what's along the stream bank, normally yellow is a pretty safe color to go with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this out. I'm doing what's called a direct dub technique. So I'm just going to get my dubbing started here. I'm going to spin it around where I get a little noodle started there. And then I'm going to slide it up. And then if I just get a wrap or two, now notice that when I wrap it, notice how it's starting to tighten up for me. And I'm wrapping it counterclockwise as I'm looking at it from my direction. So I just give it a counterclockwise wrap. And now I'm just wrapping over. I want to make this is not some delicate little dry fly. I want to make a pretty robust body here. And so I'll kind of come back over and I'm going to try to put a little taper on it as I go here. And you can see each time, see how it comes across, it's a little loose, but then when I get that little wrap, it tightens right away on the hook. So each time I come around, I'm tightening. And it's probably better with dubbing, it's better to do some multiple wrap. I mean, don't try to do a big giant clump and just do one wrap. You want to add it in a little bit smaller. You have a little more control over it. So let me put a little more in there. Let me back that. Well, let's go in here. No, it's fine. Fill that little gap. I don't know if you guys can see it. I see a little gap right there in my body. There we go. So I'm trying to work on building a little taper here. You can see quite a bit of dubbing's going into it. Okay. And so now I'm starting to approach that point there where I'm going to leave the front part of the hook here, maybe one more little wrap of dubbing. Get it, build it back in there. There we go. I think that's not too bad. That's kind of, you can kind of see it's kind of got a little taper to it. And it's, it's kind of a fairly robust body. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use some turkey quill. And I don't know if you guys, let me see if I can get it in the light here in such a way. Yeah, okay, there you go. You can see that shine on it. And what that is it's an art fixative. You can get it in any art store. What it's used for is like charcoal drawings where, because the charcoal would rub off if somebody touches it, so you can spray it and fix the drawing. What it does on these feathers, and it smells really bad, so you want to do this outside. I just take 4 or 5 feathers and stick them in a little clamp and put them out on my porch and spray them. But what it does is it makes all these little individual fibers adhere together, and it creates a little easy. It's a little easier to work with a swing. Now you notice I've done. Let me get it over here in the camera. I've done a little cut right there. It'll still split off. See, I split that piece of the wing off. It still splits off. And the other interesting thing about the art fixative is it will wash off in the water. So as you fish this, the art fixative comes off of it, and then pretty soon all these fibers. Now this is, I think, one of the advantages. A lot of what I guess I'd think of as more modern hopper patterns, they use synthetic wings. In fact, I've got some here I can show you. Yeah, here's a little, that's a little synthetic wing. You can cut it to shape. It's kind of a little thin foam thing. And a lot of guys are using synthetic wings, which is fine. I mean, they look great, but they don't split apart. This thing here will split apart, and it looks ratty. I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, when the thing gets hit a few times and you caught a few fish, I mean, it's just like it's just flying everywhere. But sort of the more tattered this fly gets, the more effective it gets. And so I prefer using quill for my hopper wings as opposed to using a synthetic material. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come in. You can see how I cut that off. I want to square that up. So it's just a square piece there. And then I'm going to take it, I'm going to set it on top of the body, kind of roll it around the body just a little bit. And then come here and just get a couple, whoops, let me wrap back up there. Let's try that again. Oh, well, went down in my waist roll. Here we go. All right, let's see if I can capture this again. So I'm going to come around here, capture it, and it's just going to wrap kind of right over top of the body like that. And then I'll come in and I'll kind of bind it down, get it good and tight, and then push it up against, kind of push some wraps up against that body. And you notice it forces that wing up. Then what you want to do, you notice I haven't trimmed it. Okay. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the wing, I'm going to fold it back, and then I just come in here. I'll do it on my side, but I'll demonstrate on my side. I come back here, I kind of go to the back of the body, and I do an angle, and I just put a little angle cut in it. And I want it to extend just past the body a little bit. So Maybe I could take even a little bit more off. Not a lot. There we go. So, so it's about the length of the body or a little longer. If I push it down, you can see it extends past the body just a little bit. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a deer hair head. So this is the third material on it. It's just deer hair. And this piece of hair I have is Nature Spirit Hopper hair. Doing a quick little plug for Nature Spirit. One of the things I do think their hair is a really high quality hair. And I think they do as good a job as anybody and better than most in grading hair and deciding, what would this hair be appropriate for. Most of this hopper type hair, when you think of most of this hair is white-tailed deer. And most of it I think is probably southern Michigan, northern Ohio, northern Indiana. I know that's Chris Helm told me once that that's kind of where the best quality hair comes from. But one of the things you're looking for here is take a look at this piece. Notice how it's got really nice tips. They're pretty even. And that's what you want for a hopper or anytime you're doing a hair wing fly of some kind of stone fly or whatever. You want something that's going to have pretty even tips on it. And so this hair is probably it was probably harvested, I would say, kind of mid hunting season. The hair isn't real long yet. Spinning hair can be, this is actually not too bad. I could use this to spin a bass bug. It's pretty long, but spinning hair can sometimes be a good half an inch longer. But as the hair gets longer, the tips start to get more and more straggly, and it's harder to get a nice collar out of it. So anyway, this is gonna be both my collar and my head. So let me get a bunch of it here. And so as you can see, I've just cut a bunch. I'm going to come and I'm going to comb this out. I want to get that underfur. You can see there's a little underfur and stuff in there. I want to get that underfur out of there. And then I'm going to stack it. And I want to get the tips nice and even. Okay. So now I'm going to come in and I want my wing to be just a little, not quite as long as if you can see the end of my quill wing is right about there. There's about the end of my hair. So I'm going to switch hands here, and just to kind of make this a little bit neater, I'm going to even that up a little bit. Okay, so this is the part of the fly where a lot of people start to go, oh my God, this is the part I have such a hard time with. Okay, so I want to show you this. This is not hard. It really isn't hard. I don't need to spin this hair. I don't need to flip it around. I don't need to do anything with it. All I'm going to do is I'm going to take it and I'm going to push it down around the hook shank, just like that. Holding on to it the whole time. I'm not letting go of it. I'm going to come. I'm going to get 3 wraps. Now, before I pull on this, remember we're using a UTC 140 thread. And I'm saying this to remind myself, because I tie with GSP threads all the time, which I can really pull on them. I have to have a delicate touch with this. I can flare the hair, but I just got to kind of do it slowly and just pay attention to where that breaking string. See, I'm getting right about there. So now I come back through. I'll just probably get 1 or 2 more wraps in there, let go of it, pull that back, and wrap it in. And there you got your wing on. You haven't had to spin hair. You haven't had to do any of that stuff. And it's not hard. I see my wing is already split, hasn't it? I'll pull it back up there. Anyway, so I've got the beginning of my hair head. See, that's the thing about working with this 140 thread. There was a time when I would tie these bodies and I'd switch over to like a 75 denier UTC, but I started going, this is ridiculous. Do the whole thing with 1 thread. Just have a little more touch on it. Okay, so
I'll just edit all that out.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. We're going to let it start splitting, and I'm going to chase it around the hook shank, just like that. Okay, there we go. So I don't know if you saw it. It went around, I think it went around about 1.5 times, but suddenly it came to a stop. Okay. And now here is the key to making that work. First of all, you got to have some thread tension. You see that I'm pulling on it, but the thread tension all the way around the hook shank. If you want the hair to flare, to distribute evenly around the hook shank, as you come around, notice how the hook is bending, and it's bending up, it's bending. You see how the hook is moving? That's because I'm keeping the same thread tension all the way around as I'm kind of chasing that bunch of hair going around. And normally it will spin around 1.5 to maybe 2.5 times before it kind of, what happens is if it eventually, as it's spinning, it's distributing around the hook shank. And once it kind of gets evenly distributed, once it gets all the way around the hook shank and evenly distributes, it stops spinning. It locks up. And when you see it lock up, as long as you kept this good thread tension all the way around, that's what will tell you you've evenly distributed the hair around the hook shank, and so you can stop spinning it. Now I've added some extra wraps in there. Normally I wouldn't do that. So now I'm going to come in here and get my thread out of the way. It's like on my bass bugs, let's do a little bit of a pack here. There we go. Get a little bit of hook eye. There we are. Hook eye popped up there. So I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but there we go. Yeah, I think you're starting to see it now. I pulled it back and I have enough space in there, and I'm going to build a little thread head on it. Just a little bit of one there. So this is the only place on the fly that the thread actually shows up.
Excuse me.
Yes, go ahead.
You don't use a hair stacker or hair packer? No.
I do. I have one right here. And when I do big hair bugs, I pack them. But with this, this is such a small little bug, I can push with my fingers and I stack it with my fingers. I could come in here with my stacker, my packer, and do a little quick pack on it. That's not a problem. But I pushed it with my fingers. What I was looking for here on the front, let's see if I can get you guys, if you guys can see this. Okay, there you go. I think you're seeing that. And I see the little thread head that's starting to build on that.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, what I did when I pushed it back with my fingers is I wanted to push it just back far enough to give myself what would be a kind of a standard size thread head, which, sort of the standard is the head should be about the same size as the diameter of the eye of the hook. And so I did pack it. I just packed it with my fingers rather than my packing tool. Just because it's a small fly, there's not that much hair there. And now I can come in with finisher, and let's try to catch it here. Here we go. Get a couple wraps, tie it off. Now my trout stuff, I normally don't put any glue on them. The flies have a short enough lifespan that I don't really feel the need to, and you can tie them pretty fast. I don't really feel the need to glue them a lot. So now all I'm going to do is I'll take it out. First thing I'm going to do is come in and trim, and I don't go with the razor blades and all that stuff here. I'm just going for just a kind of a little quick scissor trim head. So what I'm doing is I'm trimming out the butts of the hair. So let me put it back in the vise here. So you can see here, I've still got some butts of the hair there. So I'll just come in and trim those out and just make a little hair head here. And it's not, you're not doing those really nice sculpted bass bug heads where you steam them and you do all kinds of stuff to them. All right, this is looking a little ratty, but that's okay. So you can, it kind of depending on what you want, you can let the butts kind of flow back into the collar. But if you look at a fly, like if you look at this one here, you notice that the head looks a little more articulated. You just do that by bending the collar down, come in behind the head, trim the butts. And you end up with a little more of an articulated head. Get a couple strays out of here. There we go. I don't know. I could fuss with this a little more, but so, you know, there's what you're seeing on the underside of the fly. You can see the belly, you know, this wing here. Now, what'll happen with this is, let me grab my dubbing needle here.
Hey, Tim,
Yes, go ahead.
Bill was asking that hair packer that you have, is that stone flow?
No, this one is it's this guy down in Texas named Greg Stein makes these, and he makes them in his house. And I always have them with me at the fly fishing shows. But if any of your guys want one of these, at the end of this, put my email address in, and I can send one to them, and they can send me a check for it or whatever. I asked $30 for them. I paid 20. I paid Greg 20 for them, so I asked $30 for them. And so what I love about it, I played with a lot of tools over the years. I used a brassy for years. What I love about this one is it just fits into my hand so nicely. And then the other thing too is, I don't know if you can see this. Let me see if I can get this in the camera. The top edge here is flat, and you can see if you look right here at the bottom edge, you see that little notch that's carved out of there. That's where your hook shank slips into. But then this goes right down on top of it. And a good hair packing tool, and you guys have seen me tie big bass bugs, you know, a good hair packing tool, you know, you throw a couple half hitches in there after you've done your stack and your colors, all that, you throw a couple half hitches in there. And then you take your tool. Now, so whatever the tool is, whatever tool you're using, okay, like a pen, one of those barrel type tools, they're not a good packing tool, because what they're doing is they're pushing the hair like that and expecting the hair to slide. You're kind of wanting to drag the hair along the hook shank. You want to come and connect with that knot and push that knot in, and the hair goes like that. And if you ever see me tie a big bass bug, you know, when I get ready and I pack that stack, I do this, and all of a sudden all that hair is pointing forward on the fly because I moved that knot. So you got to get something that's going to go right down to the hook shank, and this one does that. The brassy tool, I don't know if I've got one, should have one somewhere up in here. I'm not seeing it at the moment, but the brassy tool does the same thing. The brassy tool is like a little clamp that clamps down and goes on the hook shank and goes back in there. But the brassy doesn't fit. There have been times where I've really been pushing on a bug on a brassy tool and my hand slips, and well, guess where it goes? It goes right into the hook, right? This one feels really secure in my hand. And I forget where did I find one of these, but I found somewhere somebody was using one, and I asked them where they got it, and I got Greg's information and talked and got a hold of them. Said I absolutely love these things, and so now I purchase them and I take them around to the shows and stuff with me. So that's my packing tool. If you guys want one, if you're going to be anywhere, if you're at the Denver Fly Fishing Show, I'll be there. I'll also be at the West Denver TU, West Denver Trout Unlimited Tying Clinic, and I think that's in late February, early March. Also, if any of you guys who are back in the Midwest, I'll be at the Midwest Fly Fishing Expo down in Warren, Michigan in March, and I'll have tools with me there as well. But you can email me and I'll send one to you. Okay. So
Thanks, Tim.
any questions? I was gonna get my up here's my half hitch. This is what I was telling you about, a barrel tool. But so now when you fish this thing, what'll happen is, let me come in here and split this swing up. I don't know if you can see it, but the swing kind of frays out. Now it's kind of obscured by the hair there, but if I pull it apart, you see the wing itself just starts to fray out and it gets kind of scruffy looking. And honestly, the scruffier it is, the better it fishes. So, little Letort Hopper. And all I have to do is tie it in black to get a cricket. And I'll add one more thing on this. Just a quick thing on how I decide between, do I want to fish a cricket or a hopper? Any place that's like fairly wooded and closed in, the Frying Pan, quite frankly, is one of those rivers. The upper parts of the Au Sable in Michigan are one of those kind of rivers. I normally will pick a cricket. But when I'm in a big open river that's got wind and stuff like that, where there's big grassy banks and that kind of thing, then I'll fish a hopper. That's not 100% true. I fish hoppers on the Frying Pan too, but I do find that they seem to really fish on the pan anyway, seem to really like, rising and eating stuff that's black. So, any other questions on this one?